what social norm in our society, if you could just delete, what would you, and why are you right?
Oh, I love that. What social norm would I delete?
I love that question.
What social norm would I delete? Oh.
Think about it.
Yeah, I'm thinking about it.
Give me some time.
You know what social norm I would delete?
Yeah.
It's so rad. Like, it's such a... it's weird.
Yes.
But having to introduce people to other people when you see them in public. So you know that moment when you're like...
That is so funny and indicative of who you are. And I'll go into... Just carry on. Yeah. I'll tell you just now. Yeah.
Like, you know when you're with your friends and then you meet, like, you bump into someone that's like at a mall or whatever.
Yeah.
And you're with this friend and everything in you knows these two people are never going to interact ever again in their whole lives.
They're two different people.
Completely different worlds.
They'll never get on.
One's a goth, one's a preppy. Like, you're just never ever going to interact.
Yeah.
And then the one that you're with is just standing there like waiting for you to be like, hey, by the way,
I'm always that guy.
Yeah. By the way, this is my friend. Oh, yeah. How do you know each other?
Yeah.
I would scrap that whole thing. I would just talk to the person I knew and they knew me, and then we'd go on our merry way. And no one would care that I didn't introduce them to anyone else.
Is this a Curb episode? I feel like it should be if it's not.
It should be.
But the amount of time...
Because that is very Curb-like.
That is so Curb-like.
Yeah.
And like I almost... Because there's so many times when I've been out, I've had a friend with me, and then I see a friend, and I don't introduce them, and the friend will be like, why didn't you introduce me? I'm like, why? That's so rude, bro. I'm like, you will never see that person ever again. And you know what? I was just passing through. I didn't want to chat to that person for too long. We've got a fucking movie to get to, or we're meeting people.
There we go.
I couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah, so that's my answer. Yeah. That's what I would say.
No, absolutely.
It's weird because it is actually polite to introduce people, but I would scrap that if I had like a magic wand. Yeah.
But also, do you know why I think you would do that? I almost think it's because you're such a popular guy.
Am I?
You're a pretty popular guy.
Popular.
And the amount of time...
Why do I break out into song? It's so weird.
You just kind of sing the end of your sentence all the time.
But it's a great song. You know that song?
No, I don't. No, but I think it's... I like your singing voice. But when we were kids, would walk around like different socials or bars, and because you're such a popular guy, and I would get there because I went to university in like a different town, and we'd get back to Joburg, and we'd walk around like some bar.
Hated me for this reason. A lot of my friends hated me for this reason.
They'd be like, oh, my mate Nick, you got to meet him, and I'm like, hi.
Oh, yeah. I remember everyone. People used to complain to this about this. Now I'll tell you, like, now people still, like, in London, it's starting to become a thing.
What?
The introduction, like, hey, what's up? How are you?
It's like everywhere you go, you know someone, and it's actually exhausting because the amount of time I'm sitting in the background, like waiting for you to get done with your conversation.
And I'm sure maybe some part of you actually wouldn't mind if I didn't introduce you.
I would prefer you not to. Genuinely,
I agree.
Because now I have to make some fake interaction with the person you just introduced me to. Oh, hi Ishmael. Hi, you know.
It's always an Ishmael.
Hi, just the first thing that came to my head. Hi, Julia. Hi, Siyabonga. Like, oh, hi. Oh, you went to that school. Oh, yes. Okay. Yeah. And do we know that we're never gonna be mates? Like, agree. I completely. So I completely agree with that.
What would you change?
What would I change?
Yeah.
This is okay, so I've got two. I'll explain them both really quickly.
Okay.
So the first one is I don't believe in going to the office all the time. I don't believe...
I could not agree with this more.
I think it's so silly.
It's so dumb.
Like, I almost think we should just have project-based work. Because I don't mind doing a little bit of work on Saturday or Sunday. Like, I can do work whenever. But for me to go into the office when I don't have that much work to do, it's just silly, you know? Like, I'm kind of sitting there, I'm like drawing squares on the on the desktop. Yeah, I think it's so silly.
Have you seen that guy, just sorry on that point, have you seen that guy that's making those viral videos about pre- and post-pandemic travel?
No.
Oh, I'll send it to you. He makes these videos where it's like, I have to get to the office. It's so good. And it's so true. I'm in the train. Why are you bumping me? Get off. And you have this whole like intense lived experience before you even get to work.
Exactly.
Then you have to start working after that. Now it's like, I work from home. Cool. I jump on my laptop.
I wake up, have a shower, I get to my desk, and I'm good to go.
Why would they want to deprive us of that joy and ease of life? I don't understand why corporates like that.
I think it's property prices.
I've heard this argument.
Yes, I think it's because there's obviously so much money, especially in London and New York, and where obviously the business hubs of the world are. There's so much money in land, so now so much investments and put into office space and whatever. So if the whole of Canary Wharf was just drained of people because everyone's just working it from home, investors are going to be like, okay, well, my property value's gone down the drain, so we need to get people back in.
But the counter argument to that is, because that's happening and you're also having a housing crisis in a lot of these big cities where rental prices are going through the roof because there's just not enough homes, instead of making those offices, we renovate them and make them apartments.
Yes,
affordable apartments.
I completely agree with you, but I think it's incorrect.
Oh,
I think they want to.
You think I'm incorrect?
I think they want to have a hold.
Oh, you think it's a strangulation of the people?
Yes, because then prices just go up.
Oh, interesting.
I think
so. You're assuming we just live in a world of just Dr. Evils.
Absolutely.
Okay, got it. Now you know.
we've had that conversation. And just quickly before.
Oh, sorry, yeah.
The other one is that I feel like it's crazy that there aren't more places that I can urinate or defecate.
Oh, great.
I hate
point.
I hate being on the tube, and now I have to sit on the tube.
What's up with that?
To pee the whole time.
What's up with that?
I'm so uncomfortable. It's bad for my body. There should be like a urinal on every tube station, and people just get over it.
Yeah.
And I get it. You're peeing. I'll look away. I don't know.
You know what? That's not the issue.
What's the issue?
The issue is homelessness.
Oh.
They want to prevent homeless people from sleeping in the tube bathrooms. So they took them all out.
Oh,
because I asked the same question. I was like, why aren't there urinals?
There should be more toilets.
Yeah, and they were like, no, the reason is homelessness. Yeah.
Well, that is evil itself.
Yeah. I mean, but remember, homeless infrastructure and homeless architecture is a very big thing.
Yeah, no.
So, for example, why benches sometimes have the handles,
in the middle.
In the middle.
So they can't sleep on it.
Because they can't sleep on it.
It's so crazy.
Things like that.
It's pretty gross.
It is kind of messed up.
Yeah.
We've got a lot to get to. We've got a couple of questions that we have from the fans and people.
And I'm so excited.
We've got to get to. I'm so excited for you to ask these, and I'm so excited to talk about these because these are great questions from you guys. So let's get right into it.
Absolutely.
Boom.
Bam.
Mind your goddamn business.
What's the one thing you wish you'd done differently when starting your business?
Oh, the one thing I probably wish I did differently was when I was pulling together my team, I wish I was more rigorous about who I chose in the initial formation of the team.
Wow.
And the reason why I say that is because team is everything. It's people. Business is people.
You've mentioned this before.
Yeah, I've said this before. And if you get the right people, well, then you have the right recipe to create a really, really good meal. Like, if in effect, it's team. You cannot emphasize that enough. And I think the way you pick your team should be a process that doesn't just align from an intellectual basis, meaning they're not just really intelligent people, but they should also be people who you would ordinarily socialize with and interact with, because it's like a relationship. And if it's with someone who you're going to find like tough to deal with or interact with on a day-to-day basis, well, then the relationship is going to be tough in general. So I feel like we got into a position like a lot of startups do, where you're almost desperate to pull together a team or the people that you think are necessary for the job. In our case, an actuary or a regulatory guy, or you're trying to find these people and you're just so happy to find one, and that you'll take them no matter what they come with. And I think you should definitely step back and ask yourself if they're actually the right fit before you go ahead and do that.
That's super interesting. Can we just double click on that?
Yeah.
So in terms of finding the right people, do you think it's more about having people that you kind of almost socialize well with, and then the skill level? Because there's a Simon Sinek quote that's super interesting. Well, there's a whole point that he made, and it was like they speak to like the SEAL team. He went to go speak to like the head of the Navy SEALs.
Yeah.
And it was like on the graph, it was like if the y-axis is the most competent Navy SEAL, and on the bottom axis it's the person you trust the most. If you could have the extreme of one, do you pick the best possible Navy SEAL or the one that you trust the most?
Ooh.
Which one you pick?
That's right.
And the Navy SEAL said trust every time.
Yeah.
I'd rather take the person that I know I can trust versus the person that I know is really good and might be really selfish.
Such a good point. The thing is, you can learn anything. so long as you're dedicated and hungry enough. You can learn anything under the sun.
Agreed.
What you can't learn is the implicitness to be honest, fair, and reasonable. Those things are born traits.
Absolutely.
It's years and years and years of development, your family, So if someone has those traits intrinsically, a friend of yours that you understand, I would sooner be happy to partner with them than someone who may have the intellectual capacity but could potentially lack on these very, very core behavioral traits. So I would agree with Senek in that sense. I would take the trust over the ability.
I couldn't agree.
Yeah.
Couldn't agree more. If I look, sorry, no, back to me.
Yeah.
That's a great question for you.
Because I actually want to know, what is your reason? Well, what's your one thing that you think was hardest?
Before I go into that, in terms of the trust of the people that you have around you, if I look at me and my co-founder Matthew, a huge thing is we're family. So there's
I
can't
couldn't be closer than that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I can't remember the exact statistic, but it's like the most successful businesses are family businesses because there's so much more there, right?
Interesting.
So we're not talking about a massive corporate, we're talking about your mom and pop shop, your local logistics shop, your hardware store, whatever it might be. Your most successful ones are family because it's all about our continued success as a family. I care about you more than me bringing in money. So how do we make this as a communal environment?
Yeah.
And for me and Matthew, I believe whenever I'm doing something and I disagree with what he's saying, or vice versa, it's like, no, hang on. Let's go back to what's the first step. We're family first, and how do we do this together as a family?
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, that's a good point. You can't underestimate the importance of family and how that ensures a strong bond, particularly for conflict resolution.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you always know where home is. So no matter how much you can conflict with a friend, eventually, bugger off, man. I'll never see you again.
Okay, hang on.
Family, Christmas rolls around, you got to see that guy at the dinner.
Absolutely.
So the conflict resolution has to be a lot more reasonable and fair.
100%.
So I think that's a good point.
I think it's a good point. In terms of when I first started off, and it's quite specific to the space that I'm in, so I hope that this is useful to the viewers and to the listeners. I wish we had looked at the structure of the business differently.
Okay.
So when we went into it, we created...
Tell me why.
And it's a great song, by the way.
Yeah, I love that song.
Great
movie.
Yeah, no, really good. Although she never had an Australian accent. That always really irritated me.
Because she was supposed to be from Australia,
She's
right?
supposed to be from Oz. And she came in and she had this American accent.
Yeah, but the Americans have a weird way of doing weird accents when they're... Like, have you noticed when they want to make someone like bougie or something, or rather like Roman times, if they throw it all the way back, that person always has an English accent.
Yes.
Have you noticed that?
And I hate it when there's an American, like when Brad Pitt and Troy, I'm like, how does this guy have an American accent? He's obviously supposed to be British. But obviously he's actually Greek, like it's
they always do that.
Yeah.
If it's like any kind of varying accent, they do like a British one.
Yeah.
Very strange. So they don't respect accents. It's just
they just don't actually. No, to be fair.
So anyway, I cut
you
you off.
No, it's fine. I just, for when we started as a CIC, a community interest company, there are no real benefits as for us to be a CIC. It's more, it's a good way to get a foot in the door in being a non-profit, right? Okay. So we can do everything we want. We can raise the money for our charities. We can send the money over. But in terms of if Evander decides to donate 50 billion pounds to Keshaw, he can't use it as a tax rebate. So there's no real incentive for you to do that out of just the goodness of your heart.
Yeah.
You're not gonna, so there are far more incentives with other structures that people have gone with. So that's probably helpful.
That's very helpful.
Yes.
That's very helpful.
Cool. Yeah, sure.
Nice.
Cool.
Ooh, we're on a roll, my friend.
I think we are. Okay.
Continue.
Question 2. Is quitting your job to start a business ever really worth the risk?
You know what? I was looking at that question and I wanted to ask. Oh, it's so good. It's juicy. It's a juicy
You're
question.
rearing to go. You're like, let me get stuck in. Yeah.
You know what? This is one of the biggest questions that people worry about when they start a business. And I would say, no. And that may be a bit controversial.
Yeah.
That may be a bit controversial.
Sure.
I'll explain why I say no. Why I say no is this. Often, when you're starting your business, the one thing that sometimes creates panic, which sometimes creates poor decision-making, is the lack of runway. What's runway? Well, runway is essentially the funding or fund that you have to run the business.
Yeah.
when you lack runway, you're working from a position of, it's lack, and you're desperate. When you have a job that could potentially be the quote unquote fallback temporarily, you have the ability to think a lot clearer, and you have the certainty that there is something there in which you could provide that safety net. Now, I will caveat it by saying, if you over-rely on the safety net, that's when you'll fail to succeed. So it has to be a very fine balance. You have to have true conviction in the business, but also something that could potentially support it if the runway starts to shorten drastically. Sure. Now, I will say that there is a stage in which you can do this for, and that's the earliest stage. There does come a point where the two are twined. There's a point where you have to quit the job because the one is just taking off, and you just don't have time, 24 hours to do both.
Yeah.
And I think that's when it makes the most sense, when you can clearly see that this thing is going in such a direction that it's just not going to be feasible to be able to do both.
Yes.
But initially, if you come up with an idea in your first 2-3 months, and you're like, I'm quitting my job, I'm done, I'm out of here, these guys, I hate my... No.
Then rent comes.
You know what I mean? Then you're like, oh God.
Oh no.
You're like, my pimple patch business isn't taking off like I thought it would. Now all of a sudden you're like, exactly. $5,000 in the hole.
Yeah.
Nah.
No, sure.
Wait.
My Viking helmet business. It's not selling the way I thought it was going to sell.
Exactly. So you want to really first figure it out. Make sure your runway is strong enough. Make sure your business has enough legs before you then fully go in, quit the job.
Sure.
That's what I would say. That would be my vision.
I think that's a really, really good shout. And you know what? There's so much talk about when you start your own business, about the late nights and the hectic weekends of working and all of that. And that is because most of the time people are still working at the usual job before, things take off and they can just carry on doing 100%. That full time.
Anecdotal. Yeah. Anecdotal. The guy called, the founder of Coinbase. Coinbase is the listing company, the Bitcoin listing company, or the crypto listing company. And he would finish at his software development job, and he would go home and write code for Coinbase till like 5 a.m. And that was just his life.
Really?
And he said, I wasn't ready to quit my job yet because I wasn't in the position to do that. He had a brilliant idea. I mean, this guy was one of the first people to realize the upside of crypto in general, and yet he still waited for the right time. So timing is everything. Timing is everything. Do not rush anything. Figure it out. Make a solid plan before you make any big hasty decisions.
I can't believe that's the story of Coinbase.
Yeah,
that is phenomenal.
Yeah, Brian. What's his name? Brian Thompson.
Not Brian Thompson.
Not Brian Thompson.
No, I think that's the United Healthcare.
That is right.
Super controversial. Not Brian Thompson. But I mean, it's anyway. Because Coinbase is massive. You always hear about Coinbase, whatever. And then so the guy who started was literally just coding until 5 a.m.
Coding until 5 a.m.
That is
phenomenal. He was like, "This is what I need to do.
Yes.
I can't do both any longer. And I'm now quitting to do this primarily."
That is unreal.
Worked out for him brilliant. Brian Armstrong,
yes. Okay. No, that makes way more sense.
Brian Armstrong.
Okay, so to the next question. How do you find your first customers when you've got zero reputation?
Oh, first customers when you have zero reputation has to be friends and family.
That's such a good point.
There's no other one. Because friends and family are what are going to lift you off the ground when no one else knows who the hell you are. So you can, go to the street and pedal on the street corner and everyone's going to be like, who's this crazy, creepy guy that's trying to sell me pimple patches or Viking helmets? Not going to work.
Yeah.
However, friends and family do know you. They do trust you. They do believe in you. They do want you to be successful.
And they've got very good context of what your business does because you've spoken about it. They understand what you're doing.
So if you can get them to buy in, you want that.
Yes.
And sometimes, especially if you go to not necessarily the immediate family, like your mother or your father or your siblings, but sometimes when you go to the cousins, the uncles, people that are a bit more removed and friends that are a bit more removed, if you get them to buy in, you actually know you have something.
That's
because often those guys aren't doing it out of pity or love.
They just actually like the product.
They either like the product.
They've got loyalty to you, but not really. They don't expect it to buy it. But if they do it, 100%.
Okay, I think I have something here.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Actually, so that's phenomenal.
Yeah, so you want to go to those ancillary friends, ancillary family members who you still have that connection with and who still know you genuinely.
Ancillary, it's a good word.
But they'd be willing to either buy the product or be like, I'm good, dude.
Yeah.
Then you kind of know what I need to do, change it, tweak it, make it, cheaper, more expensive, whatever.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
I would say that would be my first protocol if I was looking to sell.
And feedback. How did those people closest to you? That feedback must also be the most valuable information.
Oh
that you can get.
yeah, 100%. But again, I wouldn't go to the people that are very close to me. Again, mother, father, siblings. Because again, sometimes love clouds judgment.
Yes,
so
sure.
You don't want
Love's the worst.
Terrible thing.
Yeah.
Love clouds judgment. So again, the periphery, ancillary friends, those guys will be like,
yeah,
I don't really like that.
I'm
not sure about that. And they come from a good place because again, they love you. They don't want to hurt you or offend you. But it's also going to be more honest.
Yes.
And a little more quote unquote brutal.
Absolutely.
So,
which is actually what you want.
Which is what you want.
You can't obviously you want positive feedback and you want to know when you're doing well, but that negative feedback is the most vital thing. 100%. That I hate this thing on your app. It's difficult to move here, dude, or the colors 100%. Are bad. That's what you want, that negative feedback 100%. Before anything else, really.
100%. And that's another good anecdotal reference is the founder of Airbnb.
Yeah.
Chesky. He would actually, when he first founded Airbnb and people were using it, like I'm talking about the first 100 users.
Sure.
He would actually go and live with them.
Wow.
Yeah. Okay. With the people and be like, what are your struggles with using the app? And they'd be like, I don't feel like I'm getting enough customers. I don't know what it is. And he'd be like, oh, maybe change the photos that you're posting. And then they would refine the ability to post photos and they would give recommendations of the photos you need. But, keys. I always struggle with giving people keys and access. Okay, cool. This is how you can maybe make it easier. Put a lockbox. So he was literally living in the house with his first few customers, some of them friends, family, to get that honest, raw feedback. And I think that's what is astronomically important when you're starting a business.
Yeah, that is so interesting. I wonder if it affected people's Airbnb scores. There was just some guy there.
Random guy. Who is that?
Hi, I'm making coffee. Do you want some?
No, he just sat there quietly, just staring at everyone.
He was in the cuck chair.
Like Hannibal Lecter.
Any notes?
Creepy.
That's kind of weird. And on that point, in terms of getting those first users, and this is a short point for me. What we did at Kishore is that I think we did really well in the beginning. With assigning faces to Kishore that weren't ours.
What does that mean?
And
break it down for me.
That doesn't make any sense at all. But I'll explain it. Don't you worry.
The man of many faces.
Yes, it's coming. Don't you worry. We were really lucky to get a lot of influencers that backed us from the beginning.
Oh, smart.
And I think that changed the game for us in the beginning.
Massively. I thought, it made you guys legitimate out the gate.
Absolutely. So obviously the comedians who joined, you sent us videos or promoted it for us were if I can list them off, was Sivangesi, Jam the comedian, Victor Matfield.
Jam, love me some Jam.
Lovely some Jam too. He's phenomenal. Shout out to Jam.
Jam with a bit of peanut butter on a nice Sasko sandwich.
Toast. But these kind of guys, Victor Matfield, we got these guys. They're so helpful. They were like, I love what you guys are doing. I'll definitely make a video for you.
When you got Victor Matfield,
I
was in.
That was the game.
I was in. Take my money. Because Victor Matfield is a national hero.
Yeah.
And when you get Victor Matfield, guys, by the way, who aren't familiar with the sport, Victor Matfield was a South African Springbok rugby player, like
a legend,
World Cup legend, seriously,
won a World Cup,
guy.
Super Rugby. Yeah. I think he won a Top 14 as well.
Yeah, like a serious South African icon.
Yeah.
So when he came on,
so good, right?
So good.
So you can then back us, and then if you're a random South African living in London, you now see Victor Matfield's face. Oh, it's a Kishore Collective event. You're like, oh, but that's awesome. If Victor Matfield's putting a stamp of approval on that, I'm gonna go.
What do you need from me?
And then suddenly it kind of took on its own form, right? So when we had our most recent comedy event, we filled out again, but it's now because people kind of know the Kishore brand. There's enough people. I think you would call it critical mass. There's enough people. You said this before. I'm learning, and then there's enough people that understand the product. What we do to be like, oh, Kishore events. Dude. That's cool. I know I'm going to find other South Africans, Botswanans, Zimbabweans between the ages of 25 and 40, and it's going to be a good time. And I'm going to be donating towards 2 fantastic causes. And I think that kind of understanding using influenced celebrities to kind of get the brand out there was super valuable for us.
Super valuable. I think one thing we need to go into is more granularly how you got them. Because I think a lot of people want to know, like, how do you no one just has Victor Matfield's number on there.
When you're Nick.
When you're this cool.
Yeah.
But seriously, but how, like, you actually got, like, I assume it's word of mouth. I assume it's like a friend of a friend of a friend, because everyone knows everyone within like 5 degrees of separation.
There's obviously a small community in South Africa, so it's quite funny. I mean, like, a lot of the guys, like, so for example, and Victor, we DM'd him. And we said,
seriously,
like, hi guys, this is what we're doing. This is what we're about.
Cold DM.
This is our website, and this is our link to our Instagram.
Do not underestimate the importance of sliding into the DMs.
Absolutely, it's so big. It's so big,
massive.
And they obviously did their background checks. You know, they looked, they saw we're registered. We're like a real bunch. We're not, peddling money.
Yeah.
We're an NGO. You know, but to be honest, like, I've done a lot of work with influencers previously. So, like, I do know, like, how this works, and, like, I was like, hey guys, we could try pay you, but we're an NGO. We've got no money, and they're like, no, don't worry about it. Wow. We got you.
That's incredible.
So, no, it was really, really cool. I wish I hadn't given the game away there. It wasn't like I'm just bets mates with Victor Matfield. It was just a little cold DM, but it did.
That's so useful. Yeah. I think people find that way more useful than just being close with Victor Matfield. Like,
absolutely,
a DM could really get you
100%.
It's incredible. Wow.
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
That's super interesting. Okay, so I'm gonna ask you one more question. Oh, I really like this one.
Do you?
What's the weirdest piece of advice that actually helped your business?
It was probably when we met with this. With our investor, they have a bunch of other products in which they sell to the market. And at the beginning stages of the insurance company that we built, they were setting up meetings for us to interact with each of these products, just to learn about them and learn their businesses. And one of the ones we had was a meeting with an elderly gentleman. He had run his company for about 15 years. It was they provided professional indemnity insurance, basically covered to, like, doctors, lawyers, etc. if something goes wrong.
Sure. I'm so glad you explained that, because I had no idea.
Yeah.
Professional indemnity. Wow. Yes, that's
a weird concept, but very necessary. But he's been in the game for years. I mean, this guy's like fucking archaic when it comes to insurance, right?
Yes, sure.
And we were in this meeting and we were explaining to him what our product was. It was the first iteration of our product, like beta version.
Yeah.
And he said, listen, guys, the one piece of advice that I'd give you is don't be too married to the form of your idea.
Interesting.
And we were like, bro, we've been rapping here for 45 minutes.
Our idea is also everything.
Yeah, literally, that's all. Like, that's all we got. And he was like, yeah, but the thing about business is that whatever you do and you think you're gonna do, once it gets into the market, it's gonna be completely different. Because the market dictates what they want and what's important, not you as the idea maker.
That's so interesting.
So with that, we developed a loose way of thinking, as opposed to this rigid thing of, like, it has to be this way. If it's not that way, well, it's not part of the business. We were able to go, okay, cool. What could it be?
Sure.
And the way we were able to flourish, because we started grabbing on things that we were originally never in our purview. So things like switching around how we or who we claim from. So initially, the first version of the product is that we will pay you out to sue the doctor, which we thought, great idea. Like, you can do sue the doctor, you have the money to. But there's friction there in the ecosystem, the healthcare ecosystem. If you're just giving people money to sue the doctors, you're not helping doctors.
Because the minute, like, suppose the doctor side of it would be like, oh, I hate this product.
Exactly. You're screwing me. Like, you're just making it more hard for me to, like, have a business and do a thing. Like, so he was like, think about it from the other side. Like, how do you alleviate the patient, but also whilst alleviating the medical health system? So instead of that, what we do is we pay out the patient. So we're the ones, through our insurance policy, if you experience medical malpractice, we just pay you out.
Interesting.
The doctor still has to have accountability. So you still have things like the Health Professional Council of South Africa, which you can still levy, like, small fines and, like, remove licenses, etc. So that you don't get away from disciplinary action if you a doctor that does something wrong. But the heavy burden that comes with paying large amounts of settlements, which is just crippling the healthcare department in South Africa, crippling private healthcare in South Africa, because you're talking about 78 billion rand worth of medical malpractice claims.
78 billion?
Yeah, on an annual basis.
Phenomenal.
Yeah. So you're killing the system, which effectively, by the way, is fed into the patient ultimately, because if a doctor keeps on getting sued and they need to keep on paying out, they're going to have to recoup that through their doctor's fees.
Yes.
And who pays doctor's fees? Well,
it's the
patient, the medical aid, etc. So it was killing the ecosystem. And by him giving us this tidbit of like, guys, don't be too tied to the idea, just go with it. See where you can pull things from.
Yeah.
We were able to get there. It changed the game for us. So I would say that was probably the one advice that we were like, whoa, nah, I don't back this guy.
Yeah.
We left the meeting, we're like, nah, he's an idiot, shut up. But afterwards,
actually, it was like, oh wow,
yeah, he was like game changer.
Yeah, that is so crazy. And just to go back on that, it's such a complicated environment with which you work in, because essentially we're talking about doctors who are trying to help people.
Yeah,
they're trying to help those people. Those people are in need. They're sick or injured or whatever it might be. Doctor makes a mistake. What a massive bummer. They obviously didn't mean to. They weren't doing it anything like nefarious.
Yeah.
But now what you're doing is you're aiding both sides. You take that stress off. You're helping helping that person.
Because what you were seeing, just to get on this point, because I think it's a good point you raised. What you were seeing is something called defensive medicine. So what's defensive medicine? Defensive medicine is what doctors practice in order to avoid some kind of culpability or medical malpractice on the back end. So instead of you come to me for a standard procedure, your stomach hurts, instead of just saying, hey, here's some medication, I've seen this before, it's a standard bug, it will spin out in 24 hours. I go, I don't want Nick to sue me because I said this thing to him casually and now it's worse than a bug. I'm going to run 5 tests.
Yes.
So I run 5 tests. You take time, money, effort, everything is more.
Absolutely.
Because I'm defending myself away from you potentially suing me down the line.
For sure.
What does that do? Increase costs for patients because now you're paying more. Increase time associated with any healthcare issue. And the ecosystem takes the hit.
Yes.
Once more. And in a country like South Africa, particularly in the public sector, where you just don't have the resources to be able to run those things, it's just more pain to the system. How do you alleviate that? Well, pull that out. Give doctors the ability to think less about, how do I defend myself, and more about, okay, what does this patient need right now?
Yes.
And that is what creates a game changer.
That is a phenomenal, and that is an ad for now.
yeah. Plug and play,
that is
baby.
Phenomenal, because that is so incredible to hear, and it's just amazing to see how the business works and how it runs, and how it helps not only the doctor, the patient, but like the entire
the whole system.
Entire environment.
That's helped. Yeah,
that's super great.
Yeah, what was your little weird advice?
What is our weird advice?
You asked the question, but you had no answer.
I had no answer for it. I'm trying to think. What's the weird advice? I might have to just think about it.
Think about it.
In the next episode.
Yeah.
I can't. Nothing comes to mind.
Nothing comes to mind.
What's good?
I guess being an NGO, like weird advice is hard to come by.
It's and I feel as though it's something that I'm guilty of. Is that I haven't been around enough people like me in the industry.
You're so unique.
I know, but
such a special.
But it's I wouldn't even say it's weird advice.
Producer's laughing. Special boy.
I think I've spoken about it previously in the pod.
Yeah. How special of a boy you are.
Yes, I have.
Okay.
Special boy. So mom tells me all the time. I guess the advice was like, hey guys, look bigger. So not look bigger. Sorry. Look to be bigger.
Size doesn't matter.
Yeah, size doesn't matter.
We all know that.
Look to be bigger. What you guys are doing are great. Doing your events and bringing in the money that you do is great. But look to be larger, gain. How do you say large investment? You can create bigger impacts.
Yeah, I don't know if that's weird advice. That's pretty much capitalism.
Yeah, maybe that is.
Make the business bigger. That's the best advice they get.
But I guess because all we get is like, oh my god, you're doing such amazing stuff. It's so cool. It's so brilliant. Yeah. But actually, it was like, yeah, it's fine.
Yeah.
It's time to if you want to achieve the dreams of turning the Eastern Cape into like this
metropolis,
like super high tech, whatever.
Yeah.
Then it's you've got to You've got to look to.
Yeah, fair
to
enough. Fair enough.
Things. Yeah, so it's not weird.
That's normal. That's called. That segment should be called normal advice that people give to other people about things.
Yeah, but I didn't have a good answer, so I had to try and and squeeze it in there. I had to plug a square thing into a round hole.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Listen, I think those are fantastic questions. I have a bunch that I want to ask, and you know what we're gonna do? Part 2 has some of my juicier questions.
Nice.
Also ASMR of me. Juicier questions.
Whisper for me again.
Yo.
So good.
So I'll do mine in part 2.
Cool.
And guys, by the way, we don't run these questions past each other. These are questions that our people sent us separately.
Yes.
So Nick has no idea what I'm going to ask him. I had no idea what he asked me. So it's coming off the bat. So yeah, we'll see you in part 2.
See you in the next one.
Love ya. Mwah.
Mind your goddamn business.